Well, hello, folks out there in YouTube land. Got a big show lined up for you. Let's get right on into it. All right, Hot Seat Central. We're going to go over the coaches that I think are on the hottest seats. There's one in there that doesn't make all that much sense, but we'll talk about that, and you'll understand. Now, it's raining again today in the southeast. I'm sure you're shocked by that.
Again.
God, it's raining every day. Anyway, let's get into these hot seats. I'm going to start out with Ryan Day of Ohio State. And I know what you're thinking. There's no way he's on a hot seat. He's won like at a crazy level. He recruits like a bandit. And he did a great job in the transfer portal. So what's there to be upset about? Well, losing 3 times in a row to Michigan's a huge part of it. Now, I can't really blame him for at least 2 of those because Connor Stallions had their dadgum signs. So how is that his fault? He didn't know what they were doing. But anyway, you got to beat Michigan. Now, Ohio State beat the crap out of them for over a decade, almost 20 years. It was kind of a crazy domination. But suddenly, once Connor Stallion showed up, Michigan got really good and wound up winning a national title.
It's got to be America's team.
And everybody knew about the signs the last 5 or 6 weeks. So they did win that part of it somewhat honestly.
How dare you!
A lot of people want to put an asterisk by that, especially the Ohio State folks. And I can kind of understand that. Now, as we look at his record, he's 56-8 overall, which is excellent. At home, he's 31-2, away 25-6. Here's where he gets in a little bit of trouble, or a lot of trouble. Versus top 5, he's 2-6. That's what gets the Ohio State people upset. Versus top 10, he's 8-7. That's not good. So basically, they're saying he beats up on all the easy teams, and then he can't beat the tough teams. There's some truth to that. There is. And you got to realize they're spending like $13 million this year to keep all these folks happy, all these football players with their NIL, or at least that's a reported number. And they brought in some absolute players. They picked up a nice 5-star recruit. We won't be seeing him this year, but he's a 5-star quarterback. He was committed to Alabama, but he transferred out when Nick left. This other fella from Alabama, Caleb Downs, good grief. This dude's a absolute stud in the defensive backfield. I think he's the best defensive back in the country. And I think they paid him like $1 million, which is understandable. He's going to make Ohio State's defense, which is already really, really good, outstanding. So that move alone was huge. Also, they picked up Quinshon Judkins. They've got him listed as a 4-star. He was dadgum all SEC first team. Give me a break. He is a 5-star. That guy is a great running back. I know there are rumors that he's kind of a pain to deal with and all of that kind of stuff. But let me tell you something. When you put that football in his hands, he's gone. They picked up Seth McLaughlin, who is the fellow that had trouble snapping the ball at Alabama, and we saw the results of that. And they did pick up Will Howard, who is a dual-threat quarterback from Kansas State, I believe is where he came from. Very good quarterback, knows how to win, and he's a true dual threat. That's what they need at Ohio State. Unless you've got a guy that's going to throw for dadgum 80%, you need a guy that can run as well. And they've got that with Howard. So that was kind of a missing piece for them last year. When things broke down, they really didn't have somebody who could pull out the Houdini and get you that first down that they've had in the past. Now, the question is, how could they wind up firing Ryan Day? Well, a couple of ways. Number one, losing to Michigan again and missing the playoff. If he doesn't make the 12-team playoff and beat Michigan, or I don't know, I guess you could lose to Michigan and be fine. But if those 2 things happen, I think they let him go. I really do. And it's a pretty big payoff. It's over $30 million. But didn't they bring in the athletic director from Texas A&M who just paid $76 million to Jimbo? So that might be a cheap amount to that guy. Anyway, I think he's a good coach, and I think he's going to have a good year. They're loaded for bear, and I think he'll be fine. But I had to put him on the hot seat because I'm telling you, Ohio State people, they're done with excuses. They don't want to hear it. They want the playoff. They want to beat Michigan, number one. They want the playoff, and they want to at least get to the Final Four of it. Otherwise, there's going to be a lot of pressure to let him go because a lot of folks say he was born on third base. And being the head coach at Ohio State, you're at least on second base at a minimum. And I could kind of see the argument of third base. So he's the first guy on the list. He's not on the hottest seat, though. I would put him number 4 of this list. All right, our next guy is Shane Beamer. for pretty obvious reasons. A couple of years ago, he wound up being like 8-4, and everybody was thinking, oh, they're going to be great. I think Connor Stallions had a role in that. That's just my assumption. I can't prove it, but I'm waiting on information to come out on that. But anyway, he's an okay coach. I call him a smart Butch Jones. And their team is usually about 500, sometimes better than that. They've got a lot of talent in South Carolina, but unfortunately for them, Clemson they just grab a lot in the state of South Carolina, even though they aren't the namesake. Clemson's a real thorn in their side when it comes to NIL money, when it comes to recruiting, when it comes to attention. I almost feel like Clemson's the Marcia of that family.
Marcia!
No.
But let's take a look at their schedule, because this is going to play a role in whether he makes it or not. All right, they're starting out with Old Dominion. They're 1-0 at Kentucky. They'll probably lose that. They'll be 1-1. They're going to lose to LSU, even though that's at William Bryce. I'm going to say they lose it. They beat Akron. They're 2-2. Then they play Ole Miss. They're 2-3 at Alabama, 2-4. See, this right here is the problem. Ole Miss, Alabama, Oklahoma. Folks, this is a tough schedule. South Carolina's got a very tough schedule. I've got it in my top 5 toughest. This is going to be hard for Shane Beamer to survive this schedule. So he gets done with that. He could be 2-5 right here, and then the Boo Birds and the let's get rid of this guy is really going to take off. Then you got to play Texas A&M. They got to win this game. This is a must-win for South Carolina at William Bryce, which is a real advantage to play there. So that'll make him probably 3-5. Then he beats Vanderbilt. He's 4-5. Now the pressure's off of him a little bit.
Sure, Jan.
Maybe, folks give him a break for a moment. We'll see how the end of the year goes. So I've got him 4-5. All right, then he plays Missouri. He's 4-6. He beats Wofford, 5-6. And probably going to lose to Clemson at Clemson, almost certainly. So that's 5-7. You got to let him go, don't you think? I don't see how he survives 2 5-7s in a row. I don't. Maybe he's owed enough money to where they'll let him stay one more year, but he'll have to win the following year if he survives this. I think he's going to be 5-7, and this schedule's doing him no favors at all. It's very difficult. And the one other issue that I've got with South Carolina, their quarterback situation, they've got a talented guy. He's a 3-star, a high 3-star, but he's not played any real college football. And his name's Lenora Sellers. He's a talent. He's 6'3", 250. He's talented. He's got arm talent. His fundamentals aren't there yet. He really needs another year of working on that, I think, but they're going to throw him in there. They didn't want to go out into the portal and spend the money to get a big-time quarterback, and they probably thought, well, if we do that, Lenoris might transfer out. He's a guy that he's just going to have to learn on the job. He could wind up being a very good quarterback, but man, I wish he had a year at a smaller school where he could really build up his confidence and his skills. This is going to be a tough training ground. The SEC is not a place to get your feet wet. It just isn't. So we'll see what happens, but a lot of this is going to have to do with how Lenora Sellers plays, and that offensive line had better show up this year because they really were not there for Spencer Rattler last year. Rattler got sacked 9 times in his first game last year against North Carolina.
9 times?
9 times.
And then Tennessee, they ran him out of his own end zone. They chased him all through Neyland until he finally got a restraining order out against our defensive line. It was bad. So anyway, I don't like Shane Beamer's chances. I'm not necessarily rooting against the guy. I just don't think that schedule and not having a star quarterback ready to go. Last year he had Spencer Rattler and they went 5-7, and Spencer was darn good. I don't care what anybody says. That guy, he was a baller. All right, let's get into our next fella, and you know exactly who this was going to be. Yeah, Billy Napier. Napier has got a tough situation. He's coming off 2 losing seasons in a row. He's got Jaden Rashada suing him over the $13 million they didn't pay him, and he's got a schedule from hell. It is very difficult. The only thing they got going for them is a lot of their games are at Ben Hill Griffin Stadium, which is a good advantage for them because the Swamp is a tough place to play, but when you see who they're playing, man, I'm telling you, it's rough. They start out with Miami. Miami's going to show up with blood in their eyes, just like UCF and just like Florida State. These in-state games, and I believe UCF's got KJ Jefferson, who beat Florida last year at the Swamp with Arkansas, of all teams, who we'll be talking about here in a minute. But that's not going to be an easy game at all, and it's ABC at 3:30, so that'll be fun to watch. Then they get one easy win all year, Samford. Then they got to play Texas A&M and then at Mississippi State. I'm going to think they're probably going to be 3-1 here. I think they're going to win 3 games here. They'll either win the Miami game or the Texas A&M game. I think they beat Mississippi State and Samford, so they're 3-1. Then they got to play UCF. Man, I'm tell you what, they better be glad it's at Ben Hill Griffin. UCF is not a team that they need to take for granted. Then they've got to go to Neyland, which is going to be brutal. I've told you the entire state's waiting for that game. They can't wait to play Florida at Neyland. It's going to be wild, and we are going to be very prepared.
And these shields, boys! Remember this day, man, or it will be yours for all time.
So I think at this point he's going to be 4-2. I think he loses to Tennessee. I'm going to give him a win against UCF since it's at Ben Hill. Then Kentucky, that should be a win since it's at Ben Hill, but Kentucky's had their number. I tell you what, I'm going to give them some slack here. I'm going to make them 5-2, and they're going to be very lucky to be 5-2. And then depression sets in. Look what he's got left. Georgia, Texas, LSU, Ole Miss, and Florida State. It doesn't get any tougher than that.
Oh, no, no, no.
Folks, I got them losing all 5 of those games. I've got them finishing 5-7 again, which if that happens, they're obviously going to let Billy go. Now, maybe they'll win a game or 2 in there, and he wins 6 or I think if he wins 6, I think he'll hold on barely. He may have to win a bowl game to do that. If he wins 7, he should keep his job. You win 7 in that's pretty darn good. I never thought there'd be a day when I thought Florida would be hoping to win 7 games or even 8, which seems almost impossible. But that's where we're at with Florida football right now. And that's one of the reasons why Billy Napier is on the hottest of hot seats. It's not the hottest, though, but it's super hot. And this Rashada thing is not helping him much. The best thing he's got going for him is Graham Mertz, who played really well last year, a guy that came from Wisconsin, I believe it was, and he was just very average there. He had been a highly touted recruit, the highest recruit they'd ever got at quarterback at Wisconsin. But he played up to his potential at Florida, even though they had a losing season. It wasn't his fault.
It's not your fault.
I know.
It's not your fault.
Definitely not his fault. All right, we're down to the last one, and this is the hottest of hot seats. This is Sam Pitman coming off a 4-8 season. I don't know how he survived it. I really don't. They were 1-7 in the SEC, which stinks. Their quarterback, Taylon Green, threw for 57% last year at Boise State. He's a dual threat guy. I don't think he's good as KJ Jefferson, and Jefferson left. So they went with Green. Now, look, he may surprise me or surprise you and play really well. I just don't think they survive this season. When you take a look at their schedule, I'll show you what I think will happen. All right, they start out with an easy game, the UAPB Golden Lions. I don't even know who that is, but they'll win that game. Then they got to go to Oklahoma at Boone Pickens Stadium. That's a billionaire, that Boone Pickens dude, the oil man. Anyway, let's say they're 1-1 after that. They beat UAB. They're 2-1. They got to go to Auburn. They're not going to win that game. That's 2-2. Let's see. They got to play Texas A&M at Texas. I don't like that. They're 2-3. They're not going to beat Tennessee. They're 2-4. LSU 2-5. They're probably going to start talking about letting him go right about here. Maybe he wins the Mississippi State game. That makes him 3-5. He's not going to beat Ole Miss. 3-6. Texas 3-7. Wins this one. 4-7. Gets beat at Missouri 4-8. And he's gone. And guess who's sitting in the catbird seat waiting to go? One Bobby Petrino, who I call the Trojan horse. I think he's been brought in to get the administration comfortable with him because when Petrino was there years ago, they were great. They were a very good team. They were winning 10 ball games a year. He's the coach in waiting there, and Sam Pittman is on the hottest of hot seats. I think at least 2 of these guys will be gone next year, possibly 3. It just depends on how the season plays out. If all 4 got fired, I'd really be shocked by that, but it is possible. The least likely one is Ohio State and Ryan Day. Personally, I would not fire him regardless. I think he's a very good coach, and I think you're going to see that this year. But if he gets beat by Michigan and doesn't make the playoff for some reason, he loses another game or 2, they're going to go crazy up there. They will. They'll lose their minds. And they may let him go. So we'll see how this plays out. But I did want to do a hot seat video today. And if you like this content and want to keep up with this type of information, just hit this little button right here. It's a subscribe button. Doesn't cost you a dime. And I would certainly appreciate it. And right over here is the most recent video YouTube thinks you'll enjoy based on your viewing history. And we'll see you next time on Sports Talk Jay.